So, during my winter break last year, I went to one of the most culturally enriching places in the world, Chennai. My family and I attended a 3-day conference that showcased lecture demonstrations in the morning and various live performances like the classical arts such as singing, visual arts, and dancing during sundown. And as expected from any self-respecting kid, I fussed about attending this conference. We saw a variety of performances, including numerous styles of Indian classical dances, but one of them stirred something inside me. How many of you have seen a HITECCity performance? Okay, well, here are a few more examples of art forms around the world that are not reaching mainstream audiences. I'm here today to inform you all about this widespread phenomenon that is silently spreading around the world. I hope to show you that in our race towards modernity, we are in fact losing out on our cultural traditions and history. Classical arts are one of the ways in which history and cultural heritage from generation to generation is passed on and preserved. Most of these art forms carry on traditions and rituals that are centuries old and are a window into our cultural history and heritage, therefore of vital importance. These arts enrich our lives immensely in many intangible ways by allowing us to express our creativity and uniqueness. And for many people, it provides a sense of peace and pleasure. The first picture I showed you is an Indian semi-classical form called Kathakali. And this is about a 500-year-old art form. Watching and learning about this practice in that one performance has inspired me to do this talk, especially when the artist was bemoaning the decline of this art form over the last few decades. I'm going to tell you some fascinating facts about this form and hope that you are able to get a glimpse of the grandeur and complexity of this dance. You might find this dance somewhat similar to Japanese kabuki, which is a traditional Japanese dance drama known for its stylization of its drama and for the elaborate makeup worn by its performers. A first impression of a Kathakali artist's attire isn't very appealing to many, as it is fantastical, strange-looking, and something that isn't commonly seen. But interestingly, that's the point of it. The otherworldly disguise is used as a way to disconnect the audience from the artist. When you look at, for example, a ballet dancer, you can still see that they're human and can in some way or the other identify and connect with them. But when you look at him, wearing an extravagant costume and excessive makeup, I doubt you feel the same connection. The reason for this is supposedly to transport the audience into the magical and fantasy world that the artist is trying to create, which is far removed from reality. Another utterly incredible feature about this dance is that it is only improv throughout the entire performance. The enactment is completely improvised on stage. They don't plan anything beforehand. Typically, the only thing the artists do is practice their entire repertoire. Traditionally, though, the practice was for the artist to read the instructions on what they're supposed to perform when they come on stage and light the huge lamp that's lit before every performance. So in this case, they were unaware of what they were about to perform until a few minutes before the actual performance. Isn't that unbelievable? So this is completely improvised. This implies that the artists have to be very confident with their entire repertoire of possible performances and music. Unlike most art forms today, which are pre-planned and well-rehearsed, the Kathakali artist typically has to improvise and draw from his vast repertoire a specific piece that he will perform as instructed on that day. This is truly a challenging and arduous task that requires hours of practice every day. I'm quite sure you heard me say he or himself rather than using a unisex word when referring to the artist during my talk. This is not because I'm being sexist, more so because this dance traditionally only involves male dancers. And so in this case, that means the Kathakali artist would have to be able to enact both male and female roles. The conventional performance of this art form is from dusk to dawn. However, in our modern society, it is very rare to come across a performance that even lasts more than 3 hours, as the audience tends to get bored and loses patience. Why, you ask? Well, because no one could probably truly understand the exquisite beauty of the art under the unsightly disguise, except for a true Kathakali aficionado or the artist himself. I'm sure you might have noticed that there's not much physical movement during a Kathakali performance, as according to that previous clip. This is because energetic physical movement is not the main part of the dance. It is a very nuanced dance form where facial expressions and movements of the upper body are the most important ways of expression. And this is very hard to master, takes years to learn, and requires a certain level of muscle control. There are a huge variety of expressions also used to demonstrate a certain feeling or scenario. And this is hard work because you have to be extremely expressive just using your facial muscles and minimum movement. What I've talked about so far is just scratching the surface about this dance. There is so much more we can learn about it, and arts such as these need to be preserved for future generations, because otherwise future generations will never be able to truly understand or appreciate the fascinating stories told by these arts. From the brief clip I've showed you, and from what I've told you so far, I think you also get an idea on the years of training and hard work that is required for this or any other art form, such as kanzashi, kabuki, alam, embroidery, tapestry making, smocking, hand weaving, etc. The only reason I'm talking about this particular art form is because of how moved I was when I saw that one performance. So my plea to us all is, while we race towards modernity, let's not forget the roots and traditions that enrich our lives immeasurably. So what we as individuals can do to help in the preservation of these dying arts is constantly attend cultural performances, learn more about the arts, or learn one of the arts ourselves. Some things organizations, governments, and countries could do is to promote and showcase these arts, support the artists, and allow for schools and educational institutions to expose these arts to children. But it's not only the visual or performing arts that are facing this crisis. In our modern world, we are losing our diversity in crafts, cultures, and even languages. And it's a tragedy because we're becoming less unique and more homogenized. For example, it's quite tragic to see that China, in its race towards globalization, is aiming to be the #1 English-speaking country in the world. The history that each country holds is depicted through the arts. Our histories, our heroic stories, fierce battles, and many other adventures are mainly narrated through the arts. These arts that have stood the test of time and have inspired generations of artists and audience can, I'm certain, also inspire the future generations as well. So let's preserve them. Let's reroute our path with fresh new goals. Thank you.